Colby, I think we're officially on Brawl Watch. This is exciting. Let's talk about that ninth inning and more here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Tuesday, June the 7th, 2022, and this is the Locked On Mariners podcast brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. I'm Ty Gonzalez. He's Colby Patnode. We cover the Mariners over at InsideTheMariners.com. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow Inside the Mariners at Inside Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DANE, GNZLZ. And Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Be sure to also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Control the Zone. We typically post 2 additional shows on there every week and get into some bigger ideas and bigger topics, whereas Locked On Mariners covers more of the day-to-day with DMs. We also get into some non-baseball discussions on Control the Zone as well. It's a fun time, so be sure to check it out. Again, that's patreon.com/Control the Zone. And if this is your first time joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast, welcome to the show. If you like what you hear, give us a follow or subscribe wherever you listen to this. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up, especially if your team brawl. Greatly appreciate it. So, of course, we had a lot happen last night in the Mariners' 7-4 win over the Astros to kick off their 3-game set down in Houston. And before we get into the show, again, apologies for the audio quality in this episode. My audio interface is gone kaput. Hoping to have that fixed by tomorrow's show, but you're going to have to deal with the sounds of my laptop mic, unfortunately, today. But we're going to be talking about Robbie Ray's unfortunate struggles, which continued last night. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Mariners bullpen, which was fantastic last night. Also talking about Cal Raleigh, who honestly had his best game of his career, quite frankly, last night. But we got to talk about what happened in that 9th inning to start all of this off. I think that's the only thing running through my mind, your mind, Colby, and our listeners' mind here as well. Hector Neris, right-handed reliever for the Houston Astros, throws a 94-mile-per-hour fastball behind Ty France with 2 outs, no one on, in just a 1-run game. It was 5-4 Mariners at the time. Throws behind him. Neris had only walked 4 batters leading up to this point. And again, it's a fastball. So very clearly there was some intent there. I think we can say that. I think we can all, just knowing even a modicum of baseball, can understand that that was definitely intentional by Neris. And so they kicked things off. Scott Service had some words for Neris. Then the Astros dugout had some words for Scott Service. Then Service chirped back. And Service led the way as the 2 sides collided at home plate and exchanged some colorful language. Some we will hopefully refrain from using on this show because we are definitely fired up about this game. But no punches were thrown, though this definitely does not seem like it is over between these 2 teams. Plus, there was a little bit of bad blood that was created between these 2 teams last year with the Dylan Moore Grand Slam game. So there's a lot of beef here, and I assume that this is going to continue. And certainly what happened after the benches cleared was even more disgusting, but we'll get to that later. Colby, what is your just overall reaction to the first half of this mess that happened in the 9th inning?
That the Astros are awfully sensitive about a team they claim is not a threat to them. Because like you mentioned, this isn't the first time that one of their guys has thrown at one of our guys. It's happened last July. Obviously, Dylan Moore hit the Grand Slam, and then it took Brooks Raley 3 attempts to hit JP, but he finally did it. And even then, we didn't get really the reaction we got last night. So it's a little weird, the reaction, because it looked initially like what had happened was the throws behind him. Ty was just, the umpire said, no, that didn't hit you. And Ty was saying, no, it hit me. And it looked like Scott was asking him, are you saying that didn't hit him? And from the angles we saw, at least, that's when it looks like the Astros started yelling at Scott, and Scott was like, shut your mouth, blah, blah, blah. Obviously a lot more colorful than that. And that's kind of what led it. There is an angle that kind of shows the Astros first base coach walking towards Scott's service, which, by the way, is an immediate ejection. If you're a home plate umpire, that one's a layup. Toss him right away for inciting a brawl. I don't know. We officially call it a brawl when no punches are thrown, but I'm counting it. So it was just a very weird situation. It's fun when you this doesn't happen often for the Mariners, but you kind of get different camera angles, and of course, every camera in the ballpark is now on one central area, so you get to see a bunch of angles. We saw Julio literally wrap and pick up Neris and walk him away from the pile. It's not the last time that he would manhandle Neris on the night, but we'll get to that in a minute. We see
just father-son time. Just typical father-son time.
Right. We see Dylan Moore going after Dusty. Not physically, but definitely verbally, getting in his face, pointing his finger, which kind of funny to see a guy like Dylan Moore go after a legend like Dusty Baker. And I appreciate it. So yeah, it was just this weird thing where it I don't know what the Astros were upset about. I know some like Ray almost hit 4 of our guys, and it's like he didn't throw behind any of your guys.
Yeah,
and it's
and
funny.
It was very clear that Robbie Ray was struggling with his command, which we'll talk about later on in the show.
And anybody who's watched Robbie Ray for the last month knows that those arm side misses, they're common, right? He's not trying to hit anybody. And oh, by the way, Kyle Tucker swung at 2 pitches that almost hit him. So, it's kind of tough to say they're throwing at you when you swing at them, but it is what it is. After that, it seemed like, I don't know if Neris is doing that on his own or if Dusty told him to do it. Obviously, though, it was intentional. There's no doubt about that. And, I said to give him credit, hey, he threw at his head's backside. If you're going to hit somebody, that's the best place to do it. There was no reason for Neris to do it, but if he was going to, then at least he, did it in a safe spot, so to speak. But what ensues afterwards is a pretty, dark mark on Hector Neris, and honestly, the Astros organization as a whole.
Yeah. So let's get into that. So right after France was hit and the benches cleared and the dust settled, Julio Rodriguez hit a 2-run opposite field home run to shut that entire building up. He absolutely just ripped the soul out of Minute Maid Park with that home run. It's now 7-4 after they put France on base. Again, this was a 1-run game. And for this to happen, I mean, it's poetic. It's beautiful the way that this came together. And so after Julio rounded the bases, he's pretty fired up. Obviously, the dugout's pretty fired up. Neris is starting to get pretty frustrated. He then walks J.P. Crawford, and right after that, very first pitch to Eugenio Suarez, who had nothing to do with this, by the way. Suarez had struck out 4 times. He got golden sombrero in this game.
He was one of the Astros' best players that night.
Yeah, he had nothing to do with this whatsoever. And Neris fires not a breaking ball, not some soft toss pitch, nothing like that. He throws a 94.4 mile per hour fastball at Eugenio Suarez's head, which, thank God, missed Suarez's head. But had it landed, that could have done serious, potentially irreparable damage to Suarez and maybe even his career. That is one of the most, if not the most disgusting acts you can do on a Major League Baseball field in that instance. Because your pride is hurt. You tried, and I'm talking about Neris here, you tried to basically impact a man's livelihood. You hurtled a hard object, 95 miles per hour, at Eugenio Suarez's head. The fact that this umpire crew did not eject him on the spot, they had to meet first, and it took about a good 15-20 seconds before Neris was actually officially ejected, and then they didn't even they didn't even force him off the field. They allowed him to make his case after the ejection and argue his point along with Dusty Baker, who was also eventually ejected. But the fact that that went on is disgraceful after what was very clearly a frustrated Neris trying to hurt a Eugenio Suarez, who again had nothing to do with this situation. Just got roped into this BS for no good reason, and Neris should absolutely be suspended, not just one game, multiple games. He tried to legitimately hurt a Eugenio Suarez, and that is disgusting, that is disgraceful, that is gross. That should not be in our game whatsoever. Now, do I have any hope or feel that Major League Baseball is actually going to hand down such suspension? No, not whatsoever, especially after the way that they reacted to it on the field. So what makes you think the league office is going to react any differently?
Plus, let's be honest, that Major League Baseball doesn't care about the Seattle Mariners. They don't.
Yeah.
If this was the Yankees, yeah, pretty good chance. And I know that's, oh, your West Coast cry, blah, blah, blah. Nope, I'm serious. I think if this was the Yankees or the Red Sox that had one of their players their head thrown at after everything that had already happened, then that pitcher would have been suspended for a game or two.
Oh, because this would have been all over Sports
national
Center.
news, right?
MLB Network, all over Twitter, everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, and so it's one of those things. Like you said, it's gutless, and then Dusty has the nerve to go out there and defend his guy after the game, and it's like I get that part of that's your job, but at the same time, Dusty, you're a player, right? You were a player for a long time. The head area is off limits. You do not go after somebody's head. You do not go after above the shoulders. I'll say the same thing if a Mariner, throws at somebody's head tonight. Suspend him. There's no place for that in our game. And we'll see what happens tonight and tomorrow. Verlander, likes to take things personally, unless it's his teammate, then he's very forgiving about it. Being the biggest hypocrite in baseball that he is. So we'll see if he wants to do anything about it. I don't think the Mariners are going to respond. I could be wrong, but they kind of need Flexen to give them innings tonight, and
yeah,
I don't think they want to.
I think they might save it for the second half of the game. I do feel like they might respond. It depends on the situation, because the Mariners are, I would assume, going to be smart about this, because if they weren't, they probably would have responded in the ninth with Diego Castillo last night. But it was a 3-run game. It was a 1-run game when Neris, threw at France. That's just a stupid decision. So, and we saw, the negative impact that had on the Astros as well. Led to a cushion, because honestly, they had the top of the order coming up in the bottom of the ninth. That game was still very much winnable for the Astros, and that whole situation completely sucked the momentum out of that building.
Right, and it was pretty clear early on that the Mariners weren't going to have Paul Sewald tonight. A 1-run game. Castillo's been pretty good lately, but it's the top of your order, and you have a good shot in that ballpark. Just takes a walk and a cheap home run over the Crawford boxes, and you win that game. So, pretty stupid by Neris to do what he did the first time, and then just downright scummy to do what he did the second time. The Mariners now 5-5 against the Astros. They've got a pretty good shot. Maybe not tonight, but who knows? The Mariners are kind of on one of those rolls right now where you never really know. But they still have a pretty good shot to win one of the next two and take their third series from the Astros. To me, it's already been a successful road trip. They've clinched a winning road trip. They like I said, they have a good shot to win all 3 of the series on this road trip. And they showed a little bit of backbone, a little bit of fight, which we knew they had. But sometimes it's the division rival that has to bring it out of you. It's the team that looks down on you, even though you're literally doing battle with them. And the Mariners and the Astros have played 10 times. Never once have I gotten the impression that the Astros were just leaps and bounds better than the Seattle Mariners. It hasn't happened yet. So we'll see what happens tonight. It'd be great to have a repeat of what happened the last time Flexen faced Verlander. Yeah, obviously all eyes are going to be on any pitch that's in, off the inside corner is going to be scrutinized pretty heavily. So we'll see how the umpires react. We'll see how Flexen and Verlander react, and it could be explosive or it could just be another night at the ballpark, but we'll see.
We'll have to see. It's going to be a really, really interesting game, really interesting series. These teams are going to see a lot more of one another over the next couple months as well. They finished their season series with one another on July 31st, right before the trade deadline, and then that's it. That's all they're going to see of one another. So we're gonna be seeing these teams go after one another quite a few more times here in a short while, and that's going to keep all these things pretty fresh in their minds. So we'll see how it all plays out. So we're going to be talking about Robbie Ray, who struggled last night before all this stuff exploded. We're going to be talking all about that in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning like is your Odyssey an LX or an EX, and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket, so why choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? For example, a Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $353 from a chain store, whereas with Rock Auto, it's only $216. Plus, Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices are reliably low for every customer. So go to rockauto.com right after you're done listening to us and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there, how did you hear about us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. You're listening to Locked On Mariners. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. Now, before we talk about Robbie Ray, we have an important favor to ask you. We've put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcasts even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes the survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thank you for your help. All right, so Robbie Ray had another disappointing start in a Mariners uniform last night before everything popped off. This was a much different looking game at one point. The Mariners gave him 3 separate leads. He blew 2 of them immediately. The Mariners got out to a 1-0 lead. He gave up a solo home run to Jose Altuve to lead off the bottom of the first. Then, in the second inning, he gets a 4-1 lead thanks to Cal Raleigh's 3-run home run, and then gives that up as well with another pair of home runs. The fact that he made it through 5 innings with just 4 runs to his credit, honestly, nothing short of a miracle here. He had just 10 swings and misses, and he was either catching too much of the plate or just missing it entirely. Colby, you know who I am. I'm a process over results guy, sometimes at least, except for when it's Cal Raleigh and Luis Torrens. Except for when it's Cal Raleigh and Luis Torrens, then, it's more so, rather, it's when it fits my narrative, right?
Yeah.
That's a good way. But
yeah, accurate.
I would say at this point, it's still relatively early in the season, still young, but the Mariners, frankly, need more from their $115 million starting pitcher, right?
Absolutely. This is also 2 starts in a row where it's just, the previous 4 or 5 starts, it was like, look, he had the 1 inning, and then after that, he was great. This is the 2nd in a row where he was never really great. He didn't have a stretch where he was like, okay, there you go. It always felt like he was walking, the tightrope, and like you said, the Mariners, they gave him 4 runs in the first 2 innings, and he immediately gave them back. And that's just, this team is not built or equipped to consistently, play add-on. Their lineup's not deep enough to do that. Give them credit. Last night they were able to do it. Some pretty big hits. Cal Raleigh, obviously the big one. The relay throw from Dylan Moore to Adam Frazier, which I don't know what the Astros were thinking about sending Altuve on that play. He was out by literally 20 feet. So thanks for that. That would have tied the game. So appreciate that. Sadly that was not the dumbest thing the Astros did last night. But yeah, it was a struggle from Robbie Ray. You know, he threw 98 pitches, only 54 of them were for strikes. So you're looking at about a 55% strike rate. That's not going to work. He only generated 10 whiffs, 8 of them on the slider. Slider was pretty good when he located it, but it caught a lot of the plate. Like you said, it was either down the middle of the plate or it was just completely off the plate and not even a pitch that anybody would offer at, not close enough to the strike zone to warrant a swing. So the Astros, give them credit, they had a good plan off of Robbie. They clearly saw something there. It's kind of interesting looking at Robbie's StatCast page today. They credited him with throwing 26 sinkers. Robbie Ray doesn't have a sinker.
Yeah.
They have him throwing as many sinkers as four-seam fastballs. So I don't know what they were picking up on that. That would, say it was different than anything he's thrown. I don't know.
Do you have the movement numbers there in front of you?
I have the yeah.
So is there anything different there?
Yeah, actually there is. The maximum break on the slider or on the sinker was 22 inches. The four-seamer was 15. The sinker was they gave it 18 on the average for vertical break. So this is up and down. 12 on the fastball. So it did have more sink and honestly more horizontal break. So spin rates, the fastball spin rate was actually up significantly last night and the slider. So yeah, just kind of a weird, maybe we have to go back and watch that because Robbie Ray does not have a sinker.
So what these numbers tell me, and we'll have to go back and watch, but was he out there experimenting?
I don't think it was experiment. I think what we saw is we clearly saw a change of game plan from them after the second inning. And in terms of keeping the Astros off the scoreboard, it worked. In terms of Robbie Ray looking dominant at any point last night, it did not. So kind of up and down, with that, but they clearly made an adjustment. Was the adjustment literally Robbie Ray started throwing two-seam fastballs? It's just weird because this is not a pitch that Ray has ever shown. And now he's popped off with 27 of them. And there is a difference, at least movement-wise, between that and his four-seamer. Now, maybe he was just throwing the four-seamer and somehow he started getting more movement on it and StatCast differentiated the two pitches because of the difference in break. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's something to ask Robbie. But it is interesting that StatCast saw two separate fastballs. And it would be one thing if there was 3 pitches that got classified as a sinker and you're just like, okay, those are misclassified. It happens sometimes. It's 27. He threw it 26 times. And they have 25 four-seam fastballs. So it's not a small number of his pitches. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, it was bad. He needs to be more competitive and it needs to start really soon because right now, Robbie Ray is your most inconsistent starter. And that's in a rotation that includes Chris Flexen and Marco, who at any time can just get obliterated if they don't have their good control or command. So yeah. It's troublesome. It's also why Jerry needs and wants to go get another, top of the rotation, middle of the rotation arm to not only protect against Chris Flexen and maybe Marco Gonzalez, but also at this stage, Robbie Ray. So
yeah,
you're not taking him out of the rotation. You're not even considering that right now.
No.
Maybe there's a phantom IL stint to give him some rest or something. I don't know, but you're just kind of stuck with him because we see the upside. And when he's on, he can beat anybody in baseball. So you're not benching him. You're not taking him out of the rotation. But he does need to start pitching better.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really that simple.
Yeah, it's inexcusable at this point, because he's more than ramped up at this point. He's had plenty of starts. He's had plenty of innings pitched, and they just the results are not there. And the home runs, he's now tied for second in Major League Baseball with Josiah Gray. for most home runs
Mhm.
allowed.
Yeah.
That's 14 now. He allowed 3 more last night. It's ridiculous. And also, prime example of why pitcher wins and losses are absolutely a meaningless stat. Robbie Ray got the win in this game. And he, let's just say, was not the most deserving pitcher on the Mariners that threw last night for that title. But we're going to talk about those who actually were deserving of that title in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Built Bar. Don't you love a chewy, chocolatey brownie? What about a caramel brownie with caramel swirled on top? What if I told you that you can have all that chewy, chocolatey deliciousness plus 17 grams of protein? Well, you're in luck because caramel brownie bars are available at built.com right now, and you got to act fast because they are a fan favorite. So forget about dessert. These are better than dessert. Plus, the macros are unreal. 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 4 grams of sugar. I would replace a regular brownie with Built Caramel Brownie Bar in a heartbeat. And the best part, caramel brownie bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Like, for real. With Built, you don't have to sacrifice tasty for healthy. You can have both. So go to built.com, try some for yourself. Use promo code LOCKED15, that's LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. Again, that's LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at built.com. How are those faces working out for you, Colby? Good? Nice. Good. All right, so let's talk. I'm hungry too. Let's talk about the bullpen first before we go have lunch. The Mariners bullpen was great in this game. This was a 2021-esque performance from them. Of course, we talked about Robbie Ray's poor start. It was 5-4 Mariners. They were basically clinging on for dear life. We know how much of a house of horrors this stadium has been, Minute Maid Park, and how well the Astros hit at said park, especially in the clutch. We've seen too many times the Astros come from behind against the Mariners down at Minute Maid Park. But this bullpen held on strong and did so without its best piece, Paul Sewald. He did not pitch in this game. He was not available. But Penn Murphy comes in, throws 1 2/3 innings, just 1 hit, and then gets replaced by Ryan Borucki, making his Mariners debut. And he gets thrown right into the fire. Got to face Yordan Alvarez, one of the best hitters in all baseball right now. And he gets him to ground out on his second and final pitch of the outing. And then Sergio Romo comes in after his last 2 starts in which he's allowed a combined 4 home runs. Did I say starts? I mean outings. He allowed 4 combined home runs in those 2 outings. And Scott Service decides to trust him. He decides to trust his 3-time World Series champion. Mm-hmm. And I told you in our DMs last night, I was like, I kind of like that. Trust the veteran. It's only been 2 bad outings. Look, that's probably not who Sergio Romo is.
No.
So, and again, we've talked about how, great he is at generating weak contact. I thought that was a good spot for him, especially towards the middle to bottom of the Astros lineup to kind of get his feet wet and come in a big spot, especially when you don't have many good options to begin with anyway. So that's another reason that I was like, I kind of like this because honestly, I don't trust anyone else either. So why not? Let's just give Sergio Romo a shot here. And it wasn't pretty, but he got through it. He battled through 26 pitches. He got 6 whiffs, which is not really Sergio Romo's bag, but he did that. And he had a really good slider at times. There were some really nice sliders that he threw off the outside part of the plate. And so he makes it out scoreless. And then everything, popped off in the 9th inning. And then Diego Castillo came in. He walked a batter, which is the first time in 22 batters that he had let someone get on base up to that point. And but other than that, pretty easy going outing for Diego Castillo, who shuts the door on the Astros. And this bullpen was fantastic. I mean, Cal Raleigh had a big night. Julio obviously had the home run. But for me, the MVP of this game was the Mariners bullpen.
Yeah, a group last night I referred to several times as the other guys really stepped up. It's Penn Murphy, Ryan Borucki, and Sergio Romo. They're peacocks. You got to let them fly. Romo had 6 whiffs on his slider on 7 swings. He also had 3 called strikes on the. So not only was he getting weak swings from good hitters on his slider, he threw 3 of them in the strike zone. 3 of the 13 were in the strike zone. And he got 6 swings and misses on top of it as well. Even the hit he gave up, such a low, it was a really good changeup, and Tucker just kind of flicked it. It was a really good piece of hitting from Tucker. He was badly fooled. Should have been strike 3, but he just kind of flipped it. It's what good hitters do. They find a way to spoil great pitches. And so Romo was fantastic. The one walk, really troublesome, but I mean, not all that. It was
that was the Pena, right?
Yeah. And then it's to get to
that was a fun battle, by the way. That was a really fun battle.
It was.
You got the old crafty vet going up against a young hotshot rookie. And it came down to a full count, right? And he kept on throwing that slider off the outside corner of the plate. And, Pena would foul it off, or he'd hold off, or maybe he would chase. He chased, I think, once on one of them. It was a fun battle. That was a really fun inning overall from Romo.
Mm-hmm. And, he would not give in to him because he had McCormick and Maldonado on deck.
Yeah.
And, he struck out McCormick, and then Castro, the pinch hitter, came up. He struck him out too. Just veteran, savvy. Penn Murphy, probably the most overlooked guy in this game. He was great. He threw 12 pitches to get 5 outs. Interestingly, he only generated 1 whiff. The Mariners bullpen as a whole generated 7 whiffs last night in 4 innings, and 6 of them were Sergio Romo. But they only allowed 2 hard hit balls, one of them being the Yordan Alvarez ground out that Baroque kind of got 100 miles per hour off the bat. But hey, you know what? It's an out. And that's kind of what Baroque's gonna try and do. That's, I think, what Scott wants him to do. It's basically, hey, we need you to get out Yordan Alvarez, Michael Brantley, Kyle Tucker, Shohei Ohtani. And, that's basically all we need and want for you to do. He's been pretty good at it throughout his career. Carrying the loogie is very, very tough. But there are some key lefties in this division that you do have to get out. And the Mariners...
Alvarez is one of them.
Yeah. And I mean, so will be Brantley and Tucker. And it's kind of dependent. I don't know if he would have gone to Baroque if there was 1 out and he had to face another hitter after Alvarez. I suspect he might have done it, but it's kind of that risk you're running where if you don't get the lefty out like you're supposed to, now you have to face Gurriel, and so it's kind of a risky play, but it worked out fine. Scott, managed his bullpen very well, especially with how limited it was. Castillo's probably done for tonight. He's probably not going to pitch. He's thrown quite a few over. Although, to be fair, not a ton of high stress aside from the Baltimore outing, but still, it's probably they're not going to push him. I would imagine Sewald will be available today. And honestly, Penn Murphy only threw 12 pitches, so he's probably available as well. I would assume Castillo and Romo are down today, but you should have Sewald ready to go, and the rest of your bullpen. So we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, it was a great night for the other guys, and it was kind of contributed to this total team win that Seattle had last night. Everybody got on base last night, at least. Everybody got on base, even Dylan Moore. So it was nice, If Robbie Ray was the biggest obstacle to you winning a game and you still win, that's a pretty good one. And by the way, shout out to Jesse Winker, 4 hard hit balls last night, only 1 hit to show for it, of course. Again, I'm not going to tell you that, oh, well, it's a sign that he's going to break out, because I'm not falling for that anymore, but it's better than the alternative, right? At least he's hitting the ball hard.
Well, shout out to the other guys. Don't go chasing waterfalls, fellas. That's going to do it for our show today. Thank you so much for joining us on Locked On Mariners. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow Inside the Mariners at Inside Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's CANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CEPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, just like you do here every day. Now make your second listen listen today, Locked On MLB. That's where Paul Francis Sullivan, and please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the Major League's present and past. It's free wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. So have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Go M's. Peace.